All right, as we come along here, getting through these practices, Buff Time podcast back once again. My guy Brian Howell and I am Big Dog Chico. We're back bringing you some insights from fall camp in Boulder, Colorado. Brian, what's going on? Uh, I see you put some articles on Buff Zone and so on. So tell me what's the latest.
Yeah, latest is just as we've talked about, we don't get to watch practice, but kind of watching the the well off videos, and reach the people and things like that. And then also the interviews, but just there's been some good interviews. I mean, we have I'll give Coach Prime credit for that. We get access based on who he wants to put at the podium, and we've got a lot of good players that have gone to the podium throughout the first week plus in camp. And Monday was a good one. We got Shane Cokes, we got Jordan Seaton, Camden Dempsey with another State of the Union address about the Buffs, and Vincent Dancy as well. So we've got some good stuff so far.
Yeah, Coach Dancy. A lot of people like his how he carries himself. Which is as a head coach it seems, and so. Seeing comments from Charlie, Jordan Seaton really spoke well. A lot of people wanted to hear more from him. Seeing him continue to run with the ones, they had a spirited type scrimmage practice on Saturday. That went well with the offense, really putting up some numbers. Defense showing out there in some cases, but really the wide receivers were one of the standout units. And a guy we haven't mentioned a lot, Jordan Onavoge, from last year, freshman. Now he's making plays out there on the field. We saw in the weight room how big and muscular he's been. Mm-hmm. One of the bigger wide receivers out there. Any rumblings about him or anybody else that's been making plays that we've probably hardly been speaking of?
I haven't really heard his name, but seen some of those things, and he's a guy that I've watched. I've wondered if they would potentially move him to tight end, because he almost looks tight end size, maybe he's not quite your prototypical tight end, but he looks like a big receiver, and that maybe use him there. But Coach Prime, he was one of those guys that he mentioned towards the end of last season as a guy that, he loves his work ethic and just kind of the way he goes about his business. So I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a role somehow on this team. But when you think about this receiving core, Chico, here we are. Here's a guy we've never talked about really, and that's how far deep they go. Right? Is we're watching some of this guy make plays, and it's like, really, he's what, the 8th, 9th, 10th receiver on this team when you really look at the depth, and like even he's pretty good. So how good is this receiving core that you can go that deep?
I think very, very good. You got the guys at the top. They're not top heavy like I would say kind of like last year. You could say they were. You could argue that they were top heavy. You had to play those guys. This year, you can go down that line. Even with a guy like Cordero Russell, I called him Patterson one time, like the wide receiver. You caught me on that. All right, I got to make sure I get it right. Cordero Russell, he really has a lot of potential. People call him Baby T.O., and just imagine him if he's the 5th wide receiver behind Omarion Miller, Terrell Timmons, right? Who else? LeJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., Travis Hunter, and then Will Shepherd.
Yeah.
And he's down that far on the list, and how much talent that he has. Yeah, very deep unit of the wide receivers that Coach Phillips has to kind of find out what combination is going to work best together, and which guys that Shedeur Sanders really trust out there when those bullets start to fly, so to speak, in the defensive line that's coming after him.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I agree that they're not top heavy like they were last year, but in a way, I think they're top heavy in that I think that top 4 is going to dominate the production. Travis Hunter, Jimmy.
So that's excluding my. I'm trying to look for my my shade, my glasses right here from Glass House. But that'll be excluding Omarion Miller then, if you're saying just those top 4.
Yeah, I know. But you look at, Travis Hunter, we know how fantastic he is. Jimmy Horn Jr., we know how really good he is, right? LeJohntay Wester caught 108 passes last year, and Will Shepherd was the number 1 receiver at Vanderbilt. And you typically don't see teams go, to number 5 and 6 that are getting a lot of catches, right? And so it's
Right.
hard to see any of those 4 not getting a lot of catches. And so I think those 4 are going to dominate the production, but then you're going to see an Omari Miller have a big game every now and then. You're going to see a Cordell Russell have a big game every now and then, and there might be those spots where they get opportunities. But I do think those 4 dominate the production, and that's not a knock at all on any of those others. It's just there's only one football, and once you feed those 4, there's not a lot of footballs left.
Yeah. Common football knowledge, like you said, all of that is correct. I think that this team, to keep those guys happy or get them involved and keep them, attentive to what's going on in the game, I think you will have to. And I've said this last year, and we didn't see it a lot, of course, but I think we have the personnel to do it, which is rotate those wide receivers probably as much as you rotate the defensive line unit.
Right.
Like I said, if they're running a deep route, then it's almost automatic that you're coming out. Just go ahead, go to the sideline, because if I'm the coach and I have, let's just say Will Shepherd running 2 go routes, I'm comfortable bringing in Terrell Timmons to run the next route, or I'm comfortable bringing in Marion Miller to run the next route, at 100% at full speed. So, those opportunities could then be there for a guy like Marion Miller, that second group of wide receivers. So they might not be a 40 catch season. They might not have a 40 catch, 30 catch season, but to contribute with 20 catches this year, a couple touchdowns, 3 to 4 touchdowns, big plays made, then hey, that'll be huge.
Yeah, I agree. I'm comfortable with about 8 guys in that group, if not 9. It's just that for me, it's hard to see a lot of catches beyond that top 4. But to your point, I mean, there's opportunities to where, you mentioned it. They sort of had to play those top guys last year, right? But maybe because they're so deep, maybe now that gives you the luxury of, Travis Hunter sit this series out on offense. And I don't know if Travis will let that happen, but maybe that gives them that luxury of, Travis doesn't. You don't have to go out this series. This is going to be Omari Miller's series, right? Or it could be, Jimmy Horn. You're not playing this series, whatever, and it could be something like that. So I think you want to get those guys on the field. You want Omari Miller, you want Cordell Russell, you want Terrell Timmons, you want the 2 freshmen, Cam McKell, Draylon Miller. You want those guys on the field. I just don't know how you're going to get them on the field a lot, when you have those 4 that are just so good.
I'm having a problem over here. It's all right. It's one of them days, as we know. But
That's
hey,
right.
Shouts out to everybody in the chat, always checking in and keeping us on our toes and everything. Selma Johnson said, I agree, Chico, play everybody. Are you saying to rotate so you can keep fresh legs in the game? Absolutely. And it's not just fresh legs. It's fresh legs that who may be just as good or not that far below the legs that you have in the game playing. So instead of having someone run a route at 100 or 80%, have the guy behind him run the route at 100% and get the same type production is all I'm saying right there. Because I've been a guy who's out there and you just running routes as a wide receiver and not getting passes thrown to you. And after that 3rd or 4th 7 route on a long drive, you're like, hey, but if there's nobody as good behind you, you might, I'd rather stay on the field than bring in such and such. But now in this case, you should have guys wanting to, it's hard to say this, but wanting to or comfortable with coming off the field so that their backup can come in.
Yeah, and that's where, to your original point, they might be better suited to do that because they can go deeper than they did last year, right? And you really wanted to have Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver and Travis Hunter on the field all the time last year, and maybe you don't have to do that this year, and maybe there is that luxury of Jimmy, you just ran a 50-yard go route, didn't get the ball, but once you sit out for a second while Cam McKell goes in there for a second. So
exactly.
so that's where maybe you'll see some of that rotation. I'm excited to see all these guys. I don't know whether we'll see a bunch from this year or not, but I hope we do, because you remember the game like Tarvaris Dawson had last year, or
Hmm.
Amari Miller had last year. So I think
Yeah.
those guys are going to have games like that every now and then, to where that's the Omari Miller game, that's the
Well,
Cam
see, you
McHale
know what,
game, whatever it is.
and you know what about that? The reason for, I think, a guy like Omarion Miller to have a day like he did versus USC, um, was it Javon Antonio hurt that game, or he was out of
Yep.
that game or whatever? So you insert Omarion Miller. Um, but this year, I feel like that can be a regular occurrence with the backup type guy,
Yeah.
whether it's a Marion or Terrell Timmons, because of the opportunities rather than the injuries, and because of the rotation that I feel, they should go into the games with. There should never be a situation this year where, and we talked about this, Uncle Neely and I, to where you're getting the same amount. You shouldn't be as penalized as you were last year, especially like situational or substitutions into a game. We
Yeah.
should eliminate those penalties. 12 men on the field, or you running a
Hmm.
play when you only have 10 guys on the field, or someone is too late to sub in because he doesn't have his chin strap strapped on or whatever. Everybody
Yeah.
need to be involved in the game on the sideline, and that'll help with this team overall, I think. So
Yeah, I agree with you, and and it could be those situations where an Amari Miller doesn't need to wait for an injury to get in there, to where you want to rotate them in, and so I think that's the luxury you have there. Coach Prime mentioned it, that hey, Shador is going to be one of the happiest guys on the field there with all these weapons he has and all the offensive line, which we've talked about a lot too. But we'll see how it all plays out. But you look at it on
yeah,
paper, and Shador Sanders should be very happy coming into this season with what they've
he
put
should
around
be.
him.
And I saw a question on here. Can you tell if Shador is releasing the ball better so far? From looking at the film that I looked at and the practices, it looks like when he's upright and they're keeping him clean in that pocket, like we've spent the resources to keep him that way this year. He's putting the ball on point. He's been pinpoint Shador like last year, throwing darts out there straight to the bullseye. So yeah, he's one of those guys you protect him, you make he's going to make everybody else around him better because he's going to be able to
Yeah,
give them opportunities deep down the field. So yes, Shador Sanders is looking as advertised.
yeah, he's pretty
Uh,
darn
let's
good.
talk about let's talk about something else. What's a position group that you feel like maybe, uh, if you want to say, most improved from last year as far as production, once the game start? Forget about the paper, but let's talk about
Mhm.
production once the game start. At the end of the day, who you think will be the most? Which group do you think will be the most improved?
Well, I will say I think there's a few of them, but I'm going to go defensive line, just because I think that that's the group that has a chance to be the most impactful if they are improved. I can't remember if we've talked about it or not. I know Adam and I have, but a guy like Shane Cokes last year was okay, but not great, and part of it because they didn't have a lot of depth. Amari
Yeah,
McNeil was okay last year. He came on strong towards the end of the year. Wasn't great, but I think that when you add the pieces they added, you got BJ Green and you got Dayon Hayes and you've got Torian Carter and Chidozie Nwankwo, all these guys. Now you're deep. And Vincent Dancy talked about the other day how much deeper they are this year. So I think that group has a chance to be the most improved, because you don't have to. We talk about top heavy receivers. I thought they were top heavy defensive line, and they didn't really have many
yeah,
options beyond the top last year. Well, now I think you can rotate guys in, and if that group's improved, now your secondary, which is pretty good, looks better, and everybody else looks better. And so they may not have a boatload of tackles, because like defensive line often doesn't, but I think that group right there could be the most improved on the team. And if they are, I think that's going to be huge for this team.
huge, and they've probably been most improved, um, as far as the. I don't want to say that. I don't like as a shot at the past. Because I'll just say this: the with the coaching that they have with D. Lou and Coach Sapp, that should
Yeah.
help them to achieve that status of most improved. So, shouts out to them. I see they've been keeping the energy up, as I had it on the screen just now, just watching the well off practice from the well off footage from practice the other day. So, looking
Yeah.
forward to this week. I think we'll see more guys stepping up. Jordan Seaton did an interview, and he talked about this being the underdog school, as opposed to going to, a perennial powerhouse like Alabama, Georgia, or Clemson or whatever. This is the underdog school. And I understand him on that 100% fully, because you could easily, a guy his stature, his caliber could go to a Georgia or a Florida, somewhere else, and
Mhm.
be the next guy up, or waiting in line, or behind this other 5-star recruit. Or you can go here and take a chance to bet on yourself, so to speak, and go away from that beaten path, and go over here to Colorado and play immediately. Get the experience that you can get. Play for NFL coaches, and make your own way. This is the
Yeah.
underdog school, and I like how he put that.
Yeah, and really, as I mean, a 5-star is unique here at Colorado. Let's just be honest, and they don't come around here very often like they do at Alabama or at Georgia, even at Tennessee, things like that. We've only had a few of them that have come here in recent years, and not a whole lot before Coach Prime, right? So, Jordan Seaton, to his point, I assume this is what he's saying. He wasn't necessarily saying this, but I think another thing for him is that he can kind of get some of that love a little earlier too. When you're the one
Yeah.
5-star on the offensive line and people are excited about you, as opposed to let's go to Alabama where I'm one of 9 5-star offensive linemen and I've got to wait my turn and nobody cares about you the first year.
Yep.
Not that he needs that showering of love right away, but you feel that, right? I imagine
Mhm.
he has felt the love from Buff Nation just because they're excited about him right away. And for a kid that was just in high school a few months ago, that's got to feel really good.
Right. So shout out to Jordan Seaton once again. Here's a question. Let me see.
And
That I,
can I ask? Can I add real quick, Chico?
yeah, go ahead.
We've heard from Jordan twice. He did a press conference in spring, and then he talked the other day. Really impressive young man. I mean, it's rare. Having done this for a very long time, it's rare to see true freshmen, that speak as well as he does, and
Yeah.
that are not articulate, but like just they have the knowledge and they can answer questions really well, and just show that maturity that he shows. And there's a lot that are good, but he to me is one of the more impressive true freshmen that's gone up to the podium I've seen in a very long time.
Has that charisma,
Yep.
nice smile, good looking
Yeah.
kid, and super smart and intelligent. You could tell, just like you said, from the way he speaks. So, looking forward to his development with. He has a big left tackle, former left tackle in Phil Lodeholt, as his coach. So he should be getting everything out of him, asking questions, and so on. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, this week coming up, though, with the Olympics going on and everything else, I'm sure people have been watching, playing NCAA football, but staying focused. You got to stay focused for North Dakota State coming to town. Can't look past them to the rivalry games, or it's not going to mean as much. You can't
Right.
come into those games with a loss to North Dakota State. So, in your opinion, how are we looking to get to that stage? From what I've seen, I'll say this real quick. From what I've seen, I think if I'm the head coach, if I'm Coach Prime, I'm smiling. I'm sitting back smiling
Yeah.
in my office, though, not in front of everybody. I'm letting them know we need to keep our foot on the pedal, but I'm very happy with what I see. But we need to continue to improve and be consistent, and tie up those loose ends, I would say.
Yeah. And frankly, I hope they're not too spending too much time worrying about North Dakota State yet. I think that right now is still that time to where they need to worry about getting themselves better. And, they're probably fighting for some positions, some starting
Mhm.
lineup things, stuff like that. I wouldn't worry about North Dakota State as much right now. And I think that this is a game, frankly, that North Dakota State can be scary in a lot of ways. And, they've got a history of beating FBS teams. But I think if the Buffs are focused and they're sharpening their own game, they won't have a problem winning this game. They may not blow
Right.
them out, but they'll win this game if they take care of their business.
They take, in my opinion, if they take care of their business and play like they are capable of playing. Let's say if they play is inspired like they played that TCU game last year, but the
Yeah.
defense is much better. I think we could win by 32. Why 32? I just think it
Ooh.
sounds good. 32. You like, oh damn, how in the hell you gonna win by 32?
Yeah.
Well, if Shador's slinging it and they're putting up, if they put up 52 points like last year, whatever the case, around that 48 to 52 or whatever it was, I don't
Yeah.
think North Dakota State is going to score over 21 points. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to score that much on Colorado. Now that run
Well,
game going to be hard to tough,
yeah.
misdirections and things of that nature. But if we come out hunting like we're supposed to and be as hungry as I think this defense will, with the Coach Sapp and D-Lou behind them, that mentality of stopping the run will be there. And that's a totally different thing when you're trying to stop the run as a defensive player. That's
Yeah.
what I'm excited about, the mentality shift.
The reason why I would not predict a blowout in this one is out of respect for North Dakota State and for that program, and that their history is that against these FBS teams and Power 5 teams, they not only beat them a lot of times, but when they don't get blown out. I mean, they usually stay in the games because they're tough. I mean, they play defense and they run the ball. So I will say this: if CU does blow them out, that better send a signal to the country, because if you're blowing out that team, that's going to be, woo, okay, this Colorado team is pretty good. Now, if they only beat them by a touchdown or 10, people shouldn't get worried, because nobody ever blows out North Dakota State. And so you got to go in there and just get the win. But if it turns out the way you said, you got to look out and say, "Ooh, okay, Colorado's gonna be really good if they can blow that
That's
team out."
Colorado playing up to their potential, in my opinion. That's them playing
Yeah.
up to their potential. And I think if North Dakota State plays up to all of their potential, it could be a tougher game. Yeah, 10-point, 3-point game or whatever. But I'm just speaking of Colorado. If Colorado plays the way that this talent, the way that they have amassed this talent to play, I think it could be a big victory. And you're looking at a great start to the season with as much hype as last year. But then you'll have everybody saying, all right, just wait till they get to conference play. But we'll get to that. We got one game before that, 3 weeks before we get to that. So a lot of work to be done, and we're looking forward to it. Everybody out there, y'all stay tuned. We will be covering this throughout this camp and throughout the season. Brian, you want to leave them with something?
Yeah, just not a ton of access this week as far as practice, so it'll be a little bit limited. But on Friday, we do have our Fall Sports Media Day, where we get Coach Prime. He's going to talk for the first time in camp, and we'll get a lot more player interviews than we've had to this point. It's always a fun day because we can pick off a lot of interviews and talk to a lot of guys. And so watch the coverage for that, because we're going to get a lot of different things on Friday that will roll out over the weekend as well.
Best believe, to follow, subscribe, and like and everything right there is right above our heads. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all social media, and type in hashtag BuffTime Podcast when you share it, and let us know that you're listening in and where you're listening in from. This has been another edition. We'll be back with some more. Brian and Chico, we up and about of this thing. Peace in the Middle East. Yeah. BuffTime Podcast.
Take care, guys.
All right.